Have you ever, like, signed a form, maybe it's super long or whatever, and you're just like, someone gets paid to deal with this?
With all the legal mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, like all the tiny print, making sure it all actually makes sense. Well, guess what? That someone could be you. Today, we're diving into, get this, contract management. And we've got a ton of info to unpack here, all thanks to RoleCatcher.
It's funny you mentioned that feeling about forms, because it kind of shows how people misunderstand contract management, right? They think it's all paperwork and legal stuff, but honestly, it's way more dynamic.
Okay, now you've got me curious. So, not just being like a human dictionary for legal terms,
Yep.
what's a contract manager really do then?
They're more like the architects of agreements.
Mm,
They make sure everyone's on the same page, literally from the very beginning so the deal can actually work. It goes way beyond just writing and checking contracts. It's about thinking strategically, avoiding risks, and building those relationships.
so you need that mix of legal knowledge and being good with people. The RoleCatcher guides mentioned a few certifications that could be helpful, like CCCM and CPCM. Did those actually mean like a bigger paycheck?
Oh, they definitely can. Think of it this way. Those certifications prove you really get contract law and best practices. Employers are willing to pay more for that. Someone with a CPCM, for example, they might see their salary go up by 15–20% compared to someone without it. That's a real advantage.
15–20%. Wow, okay, that gets your attention. But even with all the qualifications, what's a typical day like? Is it as exciting as they make it sound in those job ads?
Let me set the scene. Imagine you're a contract manager working on a big software project, right? Your morning might start by going over the contract to the vendor, figuring out any potential problems, and planning how to deal with them.
All right, sounds pretty standard so far. Lots of reading and analyzing the right way.
Right. But here's where it gets interesting. Let's say the vendor tells you there are some delays, and those delays could actually mess with the whole project deadline. Now, a contract manager isn't just going to be okay with that. They're going to put on their negotiation hat, find a creative solution, maybe even rework parts of the contract to minimize the impact.
So they're like the problem solvers, the ones who smooth things out when things get, messy.
Exactly. A good contract manager, they can turn a potential disaster into something good for everyone.
Mm.
And that's just one thing they do. They might be writing up changes to existing contracts, making sure everyone's keeping their promises, even showing other teams how to follow all the contract rules.
Wow, so there's a lot more to it than I thought. RoleCatcher also talks about like a whole career path for contract managers. How does someone even get started?
A lot of people begin as a junior contract administrator.
Okay.
It's a good way to learn the basics, see the different kinds of contracts, get a feel for the whole contract life cycle.
Yeah. Contract life cycle, huh? Sounds kind of, I don't know, dramatic, like it's alive. What are the stages in this life cycle?
Good question. Okay, so picture this. A contract, it goes through different phases. First, you have the pre-award phase, right?
Yeah.
That's where you're figuring out what's needed and actually writing the contract terms.
Makes sense.
Then comes the award phase, which is basically finalizing everything, all the negotiations, and getting those signatures.
And to celebrate.
Not so fast. The real action starts after the award, in the post-award phase. This is where contract managers really earn their keep. They're managing the contract day to day, making sure both sides are doing what they're supposed to, and of course, dealing with any problems that pop up.
That's where those problem-solving skills really come in handy.
Absolutely.
So what comes after that?
Contract closeout.
Yeah.
It's like tying up loose ends, right?
Yeah.
Documenting any changes, finalizing payments, that sort of thing.
The grand finale, making sure everyone leaves happy.
Exactly. And as you get more experience, you move up that career ladder. You might specialize in a specific industry or type of contract. Like some contract managers only work with government contracts, which have their own rules and processes.
So one day you could be negotiating a huge deal for like fighter jets, and the next you're looking at a contract for a skyscraper.
That's the cool part about this field. There's always something new and challenging. And speaking of challenges, the RoleCatcher guides are pretty honest about the downsides, too.
Right, like what are the tough parts? The guides mentioned a lot of responsibility, pressure to meet deadlines, maybe even working late.
Yeah, one thing that stood out to me was how important it is to be adaptable. Contract management, it's not for everyone. Things change fast. Unexpected problems come up. You have to think on your feet and change your approach.
You got to stay calm under pressure, be ready to improvise, and turn those lemons into lemonade?
Exactly. But if you have the right attitude and you're prepared, those challenges can be really rewarding.
And let's not forget about that earning potential. Speaking of preparation, RoleCatcher had some cool tips on how to stand out in a job interview for contract management. They even have that AI tool that checks your answers, right?
Oh yeah, that AI tool is pretty amazing. It can actually help you figure out if there's anything off about how you answer questions in an interview and gives you personalized advice on how to improve.
Like having a secret weapon for your interview. But besides the tech, what kind of advice does RoleCatcher give to someone who wants to be a contract manager?
Well, they say real-world experience is super important. Like, they even suggest doing internships, volunteering for projects that involve contracts, just to build up your resume.
Yeah, it's true. Like any field, actually doing the work teaches you stuff you'd never get from a book. Plus, it shows employers you're serious.
Right, it shows you're actually interested. They also mention networking a lot. Is that like a deal breaker in contract management? Do you
Right.
really have to network? It's more about making connections than just collecting business cards. Joining groups like the National Contract Management Association, NCMA, that can be really valuable.
So you go to events, meet the big names in contract management.
Exactly. You learn from the best, you hear about the latest trends, you might even find opportunities you'd never thought of. Sometimes a casual conversation can lead to your next big break.
It's like they say, it's not always what you know, it's who you know. Or who you've negotiated a good contract with. But seriously, this whole deep dive has really shown me how much goes into contract management.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize how important it is. It's the foundation for businesses and organizations to work together. Without contracts, there's no collaboration, no innovation, no growth.
True. We've talked about the skills, the certifications, even the salary. But for someone listening who's thinking, this sounds like me, this is something I want to do, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Never stop learning. Contract management is always changing. New technology, new regulations, new ways of doing things. Stay curious. Look for opportunities to learn and grow, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
That's good advice for anything, really. So, as we wrap up our deep dive into contract management, I hope you're feeling a little more informed, a little more inspired, and maybe even ready to negotiate your own path to success.
And remember, whether you're just starting out or you've been doing this for years, there's always something new to discover in the world of contracts.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Uh,
Until next time, keep those clauses clear, those deadlines met, and those contracts signed.